Okay, we're back, and we're just gonna pretend that I'm not re-recording this entire video because I forgot to unmute my microphone. So, uh, when we last off the last video, we were going to go about modifying the EveryBot intake so that we could clear our swerve modules. What you'll see is I've already kind of blown away our mock-up. It's not in our tree. So what I've done, I've still got this one open. And before I go about doing all the eliminating of this whole front axle, a good bit of practice, because this thing is untouched from West Coast Products / EveryBot Design. If ever in the future you might feel the need, you would have to revert back to the original design. A good practice to get in the habit of is when you go about start making big edits, save it as a new file. That way, you can revert back, go back in time without any issues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up, before I go about doing all my big edits, is I'm going to come up here and File, Save As. I'm going to save it as updated intake ×2, because again, you'll look over here, there's already an updated intake from the first time I recorded this video without the mic. Okay, so now I've got this updated intake X2. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag that in here. I haven't made any changes to it yet. But what I want to do is get it into the rough position where we were concerned with, which was over here on the back end of the robot. So I'm just going to get it roughly into as well, let's just say as close as possible to ideal, which is probably going to be right about there. Let's look at the wheels. I got to move it. Top view. And move it this way. So I got 3 bolt holes. And I believe this was minus 302.5. Let's check it. Oh no. Minus 312.5. 22.5. I don't know where I got the 2.5 number from. Let's double check. It looks okay fore aft. So let's move it again and try and get it more centered. About 5. Let's see what happens. 5 looks pretty good. Again, what I'm looking at is I've got 1, 2, 3, and roughly a half bolt holes there. 1, and then 1, 2, 3.5. That's centered. And then we'll just double check it from the side. Let's check our rollers. Yeah, that's probably pretty good. Now we did want to move it forward a little bit. If you recall, when in the last video, we had a small amount. So we'll just do 10 millimeters there. Okay. So right about there is where we want it. So now let's rotate it into our problem area. So again, intake, move it. I want to rotate it about that hole. And I think the number we were using was 220. Yeah, 220. Yeah, even though I'm going through the floor of the belly pan of the robot, that's okay. We're gonna clean all that out. Okay, so now what we have is our new and improved, or eventually new and improved intake in position. So then what we're gonna do here is start cleaning stuff out. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna show you how to do a couple of the little subcomponent deletions, but it's long and boring and I want to condense the video. So I'm gonna do a couple and then I'm gonna cut and then I'll come back and show you the end result. Okay, so this whole front axle can go away. So to start going through and deleting parts, easiest way to do it is just click on any part of a part, get it selected in the blue, and then right click on it and find it in the browser. So what that'll do, you can see it's found the body, but we want to go up as far as possible in the tree. So we found that component. It highlights it with a blue squiggly line underneath it. So once we've selected the highest level, I just hit the delete key and it goes away. Okay, same thing. Let's find this shaft. Okay, it's right there. We'll go ahead and select it and delete it. And then this bearing was nice enough to be at the top of the tree, so we can go ahead and delete that. So what I'm going to do here is just go through. We got to find that one in the browser. There it is. Select it and delete it. So what I'm going to do is methodically go through and start deleting everything related to this front axle. That includes the belt, this belt, drive belt, some of these standoffs that we won't be needing, or these spacer pieces we won't be needing. So I'm going to go through and start deleting all those, and then I'll come back. Okay, we're back. I've gone through and deleted most of the parts that are related to that frontmost axle. There's a couple left, and the reason I did that is because I wanted to show you a trick in Fusion, and that's related to the priority. So when we first started going through this, you can see here, if I select this, I'd have to go to find in browser, because what it is doing is it's prioritizing the edge. If I just click on the edge and hit delete, nothing's going to happen. Up here, this select box, what that allows you to do is change the priority level of what you're trying to select. So in this case, if I come over to selection priority, it says select the body, face, edge, or component. So right now it's on select edge, and for some reason I don't know why Fusion kind of defaults to it. In order to speed up our process, I want to be able to select a component, so that way I can just click and delete, click and delete, click and delete. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to change this to component priority. So now if I click off of it and then I reselect it, boom, I've just selected the entire part and I can hit delete. Same thing with that washer, I can do that. And then the only thing left here, select that spacer and hit delete. Speeds things up fairly significantly. Okay, so now what we've got that front axle's gone, the gearing is gone. I did save this gear here because I know I had said in the prior video we might add the second motor. We could also probably get away with doing another gear back in this area, and just have drive this belt from the motor to here, and another belt that would come up here, maybe on the outboard surface of this thing. I don't know if there's enough room to fit a double stack of pulleys and a belt up here, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. The priority here now that we're working on is trying to clean out as much of this front area as we can. So this is the way that I'll teach you how to do it. Might not be the quickest, but it's the simplest for me to understand. So we're going to create a profile that kind of comes down around like this, and we're going to slice all these parts with that profile. So to do that, we're going to create a sketch, and then I'm going to select this one piece of polycarb. And so now I'm in sketch mode. We really could just make a straight line cut and call it a day. I do kind of want to make it a little bit neater. So I'm going to use this front hole as kind of the center point to continue that off. So I'm just going to create a circle and select the center point of that hole and just come down to the bottom there. Okay, so what'll happen eventually is this radius will come up somewhere right around here, but we also need to continue it up in this direction. So again, it doesn't have to be precise where along this edge we put it, as long as we're kind of clear of this hole. So what I'm going to do is just pick an area right around there and come down. Now I'm clicking, I haven't clicked yet, but I'm hovering over this circle, and what'll happen, oh, there it is you can see now that the indicator has changed to a tangent constraint. So what that is saying is that this line that I'm created is now tangent to that circle at that point, which is what we want. So now we've got a nice smooth line, nice radius coming off of the front there. So that's done. So now the only thing we need to do is trim off the rest of that circle, and this will be our cut line. So we'll finish this sketch, zoom out a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to split these bodies. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 bodies I want to split, and now I'm going to select that line I created, and you can see this red line, profile. That is our cutting plane. So what it's going to do is it's going to cut across that cutting plane through all 4 of our parts. Okay, so now the cutting plane's gone, my slice is done, and what you'll see, you've got this black line here on all of our parts. Now we got to go through. So what's happened is now this part has been split into 2 bodies. So I selected it, found it in the browser, and you can see here, so there's body 1, the part we want to keep, and body 2, the part we don't care about. So now that I've selected body 2, I'm going to delete it, and voila, they all go away. Now the last thing I want to do to the front of this intake, I do want to smooth out this edge somewhat, this corner here. I didn't bother doing it in the sketch. So we're going to go ahead and apply what's called a fillet. So I'm going to pick that edge, and we're going to see what looks good in terms of a radius. We just want to smooth it out. 2 millimeter diameter radius. That's a 2-inch radius. 1 inch. That's probably good. 1 inch. How's that look? Looks pretty darn good to me. Okay. So that part is essentially done. Now, if you recall though, we wanted this point to be our pivot point. Now, in order to do that, so what these holes are designed for, they're designed for 1x1 tubing to come down through here, and you just drill, rivet. Well, unfortunately, what we have to use these for, we have to use this for a pivot, and to do that, we need a bearing back there. Okay, So I need to either extend this out a little bit in order to be able to fit a bearing, or kind of grow it around kind of like that in order to fit our bearing hole. So let's go ahead and sketch that part up, but remember we wanted to keep that as our point. So I'm going to create another sketch now, again on this part. And then what I'm going to do is start creating the hole and whatever I need, whatever surrounding material I need for that pivot. Okay, so trying to remember how big the bearings are. There it is, 1.125 OD. Okay, so I need to create a circle here. So specified diameter 1.125. Okay, that's how big that bearing hole is. Okay, so that's just the hole. So we need to create a little bit more material around this so that we don't end up breaking it. So let's just create another hole. Let's call it 2 inches. Is that going to be enough? We will see. Okay. Now, the only other thing we got to do with this is we want to have a nice smooth transition from this surface into our hole, and from this surface, or I'm sorry, into our pivot point, and same thing over here. But in order to do that, I need to carry over this geometry. So I hit P to project this geometry out, and then I'm going to click OK. So now I can also do a fillet in sketch mode, but it's just going to it's just going to draw 2D fillet geometry. So I am going to fillet it, and that's right up here. And of course it doesn't want to work that way. We'll fix it in 3D then. Okay. All right, so then we're back. I finished the sketch. And so now what I need to do is extrude that. I don't know what dimension polycarb they made this in, so we're going to measure and see how thick it is. So it's 1/8 inch polycarb. I did that by inspect, and then I just selected that edge right there and came up with 0.125. Okay, so now I need to extrude that part. Okay, so minus 0.125. Okay, so now what you'll see, again, it's treating all 4 of these parts the same way, these polycarb, because there are 4 instances of the same part in the drawing. Okay, and you can tell that by, if you look up here, the colon 1, 2, 3, and 4. But what I'm going to do, yeah, we can go ahead and join that. I was half tempted to do new body, but we'll do a join. But I also need to, this doesn't look right. That's okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go back to that sketch. We're going to reactivate that sketch. So now you see I've got this. So I need to clear out this hole. All right. Now what I'm going to do again, this time I'm going to pick the inside. I'm going to do minus 0.125. And you see it's now cutting that part out. Okay, so we'll do that. And we'll turn off our sketch because it's annoying me. All right, we're almost there. The only thing, excuse me, the only thing that we have to do, see this face, this little notch, that's a holdover from the row of circles. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back up here, change my selection priority to face. There. I'm going to select that face, and I'm going to hit the delete key and make it go away. All right, we are just about done with the modification, but remember how I said we couldn't fill it in the sketch, so we'll fill it in here. So the last thing we're going to do is smooth out this transition here, get rid of this. That would be a huge weak point in our arms. So I'm going to hit the F key to fill it. I'm going to select that edge, and we're going to make this a huge radius. 3, 4. We're going to call it a 4-inch radius. That looks a lot better. We're going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to hit the F key. I'm going to select that edge. 4-inch. 5 inches. How does it look? Make it 6. Want as much beef back there as possible. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now what that does for us is it allows us to put in these bearings, these same bearings up here as they're down here, and that'll be able to do our pivot. So I think we're done. So let's come back into, let's save our work. And then we'll come back into our main drawing. Okay, let's see how it turned up. So you can see here, we got the component out of date warning because of all the work we just did on it. So what we're going to do, we're going to update it, and we're going to keep our eye on this area and see how clear we are of it. Let's update it. That looks pretty darn good. The only risk, so it clears in a static position. Let's see if it clears as we rotate it through the motion. Okay, so what we're going to do to check that out, hold on one sec. I'm going to turn that origin off. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move this whole thing through its path, keeping our eye on, do we hit that frame of the swerve module? So I've selected it. I want it on rotate, so I'm going to select this axis. So I got my parts there. So I've got that selection. So now what I'm going to do, kind of keep our eye here. Keep our eye, and I'm just going to go do 1. Oh, wrong way. -1. -2. Does that look like it hits? Yeah, it looks like it hits. -3. -3 hits. -4. So that looks to be about the worst. Yeah, probably -5. Yeah. Okay, so that is probably about worst case crash condition right there. It's about the same on the other side there. Okay, so what do we do? Got a couple of options here. You can do a couple of different things. One, is the first thing is look at our pivot point. Can we move our pivot point fore aft at all? We got a little bit of room to move it fore aft. I mean, just looking at it from the top, you essentially have from that edge up to, well, right about here. So we could move it forward a solid, I don't know, it looks like about 1.5 inches. So that's option number one. Option number two could be to narrow this up just a little bit. I mean, we've got about, I mean, it's looking about like a 1/2 inch on either side that would help us clear through here. That's an option as well. The problem with that though is it makes it a little bit harder to intake the parts. A narrower, if you made this all 1 inch narrower, that's 1 inch more you're asking of your drivers to be able to go and get the parts. I mean, if it were me, and again, I'm going through, like, this is all live and kind of train of thought. There seems to be a lot of room in here that we could buy back. So there's a, I don't know how thick that spacer is. I think most of these spacers were in there strictly because of the prior belt and gear setup. But I'm looking at most of this, and I feel like we can get rid of, we can buy ourselves like probably a 1/2 inch in this area, 1/4 inch maybe, 1/4 inch in, and then another probably 1/4 inch in. So that's probably the way we'll go for next video.